Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. While we're on tour, I got to meet with Representative Tatone in Colorado, and it was a great experience. I wanted to play this for you because I know that some people think my politicians are not listening to me. What's the point of bothering? And this is somebody that was actually onto the exact same bullshit that I've been discussing in some of my videos, which is that when you hear Farm Bureau, you assume that people from the Farm Bureau are people that actually support farmers and support right to repair, when in fact they don't. I had actually received an email from somebody who had said that farmers are not really looking for fixing their own stuff. The issue is more having to do with not having dealers to take it to. And I did a long video on that here because I thought that was a complete pile of shit. And I also recorded a phone call where you can hear him kind of trying to backpedal some of that stuff and say, yeah, we're really trying to get this other bill introduced. And then you see that they actually took part in an understanding with John Deere that said in writing that you're not going to seek any future legislation. And this politician saw through a lot of this bullshit much longer ago than I did, which I thought was amazing.
I think the agricultural one was really tough because in the Senate, we had some folks there that were in the farming industry themselves. And what was really interesting is that the Farmers Union was in favor of it. They represent real farmers. And the Farm Bureau, which was not supposed to be in any position at all, or really lobby for or against it, they represent both farmers and the industry for the tractors, and they were there and pushing the legislators who were members of the Farm Bureau to oppose the bill because they had this MOU with the agricultural equipment makers. It's a very small committee in the Senate, and we needed all the votes, and we didn't have one of the Democrats to vote yes. So we needed one of the Republicans to vote yes. And it was kind of a nail biter during that committee because this one legislator who represents a rural area, who represents a lot of farmers, we gave him a couple things to get to exempt electrical equipment and generators, which we didn't really want to do, but we had to give that up because he was an electrician and that was his thing. But his wife actually really pushed him and said, come on, like, what are you doing? Like, this is the right thing to do. So he did vote yes in that committee. And I always kind of jab him a little bit afterwards because the Farmers Union gave me a Legislator of the Year for doing the Farmers' Right to Repair. And I said, hey, maybe someday you can get that award too. But I did appreciate his vote, but it was... Without that vote, we never would have gotten into the floor, and then we wouldn't have had the other bill afterwards because we would have had to keep doing the agriculture one. So that was probably the hardest one.
And also says something that I think many people here can resonate with.
We wanted to have the best bill in the country. A lot of other states had done electronics before, and they had always taken out some of the most important parts. So we had parts pairing in it, and then at the last minute, we got the business-to-business and business-to-government sales part, which really was a huge thing because that got the servers and the network equipment and all of the printers and things like that you weren't able to do in any other state. And they came after me for years, like a couple of years afterwards, like, come on, Rep Titone, we got to get rid of that part. There's national security risks and there's all these kinds of things. And I said, well, prove it to me. And they wouldn't let off, but they couldn't explain and provide evidence that there was a reasonable concern. So I said, well, when you can find some reasonable concern, then I'll talk to you and we can see what we could do. And I knew they weren't. So I knew my statement was a hollow thing because I knew they were full of shit. And so they just kept pushing me, and then they just found somebody else to run their stupid bill, and then I killed it in 2025 because I had some leverage to do it. And then in 2026, I didn't have any leverage to kill it, but we still killed it, and we did it because we have really good evidence to prove that they were full of shit, and they've been full of shit the whole time. So hopefully, the next legislative session will continue to fight this off if they do come back. But
also, I just wanted to kind of give credit where credit is due, because I think when you hear this, you may realize, maybe it is actually worth it to reach out to somebody, because when you do reach out to your politicians, you never know. Maybe you have somebody like this. And one of the questions, also, if you ask me why am I not using the footage from the professional camera person and rather using the footage from my rinky-dink camera that I had on the wrong setting while recording, time code. I don't have the time to sync the audio and video to all this stuff. I'm sorry. So I just grabbed the stuff that was off of my rinky-dink camera.
I started out in 2019. That was my first session. And our governor, Jared Polis, he was a more consumer-focused guy in the beginning. And he told me, he said, hey, you should look at right to repair. And I was like, all right, I will look at that. And I realized really quickly that I knew that I wanted to fix my own things. And I didn't really know about the right to repair movement back then. But I did some research. I got hooked up with Coperg. And one of our good lobbyists is here who helped me out on a lot of these issues. They hooked me up with all the experts like Wayne and everyone else. So we started out really big, and we were working on the everything right to repair bill. And we didn't do so well. We fell flat on our face. We had one yes vote in the committee, and that was a replacement on the committee. So we probably would have had 0 votes. But then what I realized very quickly was that the committee chair said, well, if this were about wheelchairs, I could vote for that. And I was like, all right, I'll be back next time with a wheelchair one, and then you're going to put your money where your mouth is, and you better vote for it. So that's how we kind of got started, and it made a lot of sense because really fixing your game console, which you can't do. Fixing a lot of things is nice to have, but for someone in a mobilized wheelchair, that's your life. You have to have that happen. So it was the right thing to do to start out with motorized wheelchairs. So we presented that bill and we passed that one, and we were the first in the country to really do any kind of meaningful right to repair bill. And that kind of opened up the floodgates for us to keep going and go with the agricultural equipment next, and then go with the electronics for everything else. And that one was a really important one because we wanted to have the best bill in the country. A lot of other states had done electronics before, and they had always taken out some of the most important parts. So we had parts pairing in it, and then at the last minute we got the business-to-business and business-to-government sales part, which really was a huge thing because that got the servers and the network equipment and all of the printers and things like that you weren't able to do in any other state. And they came after me for years, like a couple years afterwards, like, come on, Rep Titone, we got to get rid of that part. There's national security risks and there's all these kinds of things. And I said, well, prove it to me. And they wouldn't let off, but they couldn't explain and provide evidence that there was a reasonable concern. So I said, well, when you can find some reasonable concern, then I'll talk to you and we can see what we could do. And I knew they weren't. So I knew my statement was a hollow thing because I knew they were full of shit. And so they just kept pushing me, and then they just found somebody else to run their stupid bill, and then I killed it in 2025 because I had some leverage to do it. And then in 2026, I didn't have any leverage to kill it, but we still killed it, and we did it because we have really good evidence to prove that they were full of shit, and they've been full of shit the whole time. So hopefully the next legislative session will continue to fight this off if they do come back. But we've seen the tech companies really start to push back even harder than they did. I don't think they ever really imagined us breaking through at all. And now that we have, they're really getting nervous. And that's great because I've been trying to do some other things on agricultural data, which will be a Senate bill pretty soon. We got to keep pushing this, and we got to keep pushing these companies because the more money they make on these things, the more lobbying they're going to have against it, and it's going to be harder and harder to get through. So we got to do it now, and we got to fix this problem as soon as we can because it's going to get more and more difficult to get people to do it.
I know a lot of people are very cynical when it comes to dealing with politicians in general, thinking this is an absolute and utter waste of my time. None of them are listening to me. They're all just going to backstab me. So I like highlighting the work of politicians that actually listen to their constituents. And more importantly, not even listen to their constituents, but before they even heard from their constituents, understand when they're dealing with somebody who's in bad faith and a bullshitter. So when Rep Titone said, I knew that my offer to change the bill if you could prove to me where the security issues are was in bad faith because I knew you were full of shit. That was music to my ears. And I imagine a lot of you there had the same smirk on your face with the same laugh, because it's like, this is such a basic thing to understand, but you're just not used to hearing that from people who are elected to public office. And if you look at the campaign finance papers for the state of Colorado, and you look at the amount of money this representative has taken and where they're taking it from, it really does read like somebody who didn't get into this to get rich or be a corrupt asshole, but just got into being in local politics because they were just fed up and sick and tired of bullshit. And I want to highlight those stories in the channel as much as possible. So we are going through a tour around the country. I'll leave a link down below with all the events. And if you are interested in showing up to any of these, I would love to have you there. Also, if you're a politician at the city, state, or federal level and have any experience with these issues, we'd love to hear from you. And we'd love to have you as a panel member. Do let me know. I have my email down below, and I'll be reading it. Thank you very much. And as always, BlackBerry hopes that you learned something. What a good little BlackBerry. You're my good little girl. You're my little attention person. Look at you. She tried to knock my box off the table because I was doing the video instead of paying attention to her. She always wants me to pay attention to her. Don't you, BlackBerry? Indeed. Indeed you do.